Well, hi everyone, boys and girls, mums and dads. We are on the second deck of this enormous life-size ark in northern Kentucky. See, Noah's Ark didn't land on the mountains of Ararat, it landed in Kentucky. Well, actually, Noah's Ark actually did land on the mountains of Ararat.
Yes.
We're not sure which mountain.
No.
Right? It didn't say Mount Ararat, it said mountains of Ararat.
Correct.
But we rebuilt, in a way,
Yes.
Noah's Ark here in northern Kentucky. ArkEncounter.com for all the details. We're on the second deck, 510 feet long.
Yes.
And 85 feet wide. So 1.5 times the length of a football field, half the width of a football field. And it's built 15 feet off the ground, but stands 7 stories high, at the bow 10 stories high. This is an enormous structure. Now, we've been doing these animal encounter programs and doing them at the zoo, and Karina is our animal presenter, and she's one of the zookeepers. And we've been going around looking at a lot of the live animals, but now we're looking at some of the sculptured animals because we want to talk about the animals living on the ark. That's why we have a zoo here. It's because we want to talk about kinds rather than species, and the kinds were represented on the ark, species, in most instances, developed after the flood, and so on. So what we're doing today, we're looking at some of the bigger cages that are on deck 2, set up as real cages to function for animals, so these aren't just ordinary props. And so Karina's going to give us a bit of a survey of some of the animals we have here, talk about them, and then look at some of the smaller cages and how they were cared for as well in regard to the animals living in them.
Yes.
So Karina?
So, according to the biblical model, which God in the Bible says that Noah needed to bring representatives of all air-breathing land animal kinds and bird kinds. So that totals about 1,400 biblical kinds, which totals about 6,800 individual animals. So with a 510-foot-long ship that's 85 feet wide and over 50 feet tall, that's plenty of room to house those 6,800 animals. So we're going to show you some of the animal cages that we have set up here, as well as how they could have been cared for. So this first representative down here is from our alligator kind, the crocodilian kind. So a lot of people imagine when you say crocodile, these big 10 to 20 foot long monstrosities that we have alive today, like our Nile crocodiles, our saltwater crocodiles, our American alligators. But these guys do start very, very small. All big animals do start as juveniles that are very small. So it would make sense for Noah to have juvenile animals on his ark, or young adult animals. And again, God was the one who brought these animals to him. And these animals are responsible for repopulating their entire kind after the flood. So you would want an animal that's younger with a longer reproductive life ahead of them. So even these large crocodilians, these large animals start out very small. So this is representative of about a year or two old crocodilian. So even throughout the year that they were on the ark was on voyage for about a year, they still would have been very, very small and very easy to house. So this is a great example of how you can still fit very large animals on this ark. And then next to them we have the representative of the hyena kind. And again, today hyenas are quite large. They're one of the top predators in Africa. They even best lions and leopards out in their native environment. But again, the original representative of the kind was likely very small.
So, Karina, hyenas aren't dogs.
No, they're not. Hyenas are not dogs, no.
They're a separate kind in themselves.
Yes,
because some people think that they're like dogs.
Yeah, they are not. They're not even within the canine family in the traditional animal classification system. So they are not dogs, even though they kind of look dog-like to some people. So this here is an Ichthyotherium, which is a representative of the hyena kind, which has since gone extinct. But as you can see, they're very small. So the original hyena kind could have been much smaller than they are today. And then next to him, we have our Cynonathus, which is a representative of, these are synapsids. So synapsids are an order of animals that have since all gone extinct. I'm sorry, a class of animals that have all gone extinct. The best way to describe them are mammal-like reptiles. So they have kind of characteristics of both. So here's an example of one of these guys, and they're pretty funny looking.
You know, it's interesting, evolutionists try to say the mammal-like reptiles are transitional forms. But these are fully formed, fully functional.
Right.
And like today, if you take the platypus, you know, has a bill like a duck and a beaver-like tail and hair like a bear and lays eggs like a turtle and so on. So just because an animal has features that others have doesn't mean it's a transitional
Nope,
form.
not at all. It just means that's the way God created it, and they're perfectly designed for the purpose that he gave them. And then next to those guys, we have the pachycetids. Now, these guys are often touted by evolutionists as the ancestors to whales and dolphins today, because they believe that whales and dolphins, their ancestors started on land and then went back and evolved into water creatures. But biblically, we know that's not true, because God created all sea life as well as flying life on day 5 of creation week, and he created land animals on day 6. So biblically, the whales and dolphins would have existed before these pachycetids here.
So, now come on, Karina. You look at this, it looks like it's evolving into a whale, right?
As a marine biologist, so my degree is actually in marine biology, and this is what I was taught in college, was that these animals turned into whales and dolphins.
If you look up the evolutionist textbooks, they'll say that this was a transitional form between the land animals and going through to becoming a whale or dolphin or whatever. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yes. So, again, there really is a lack of evidence on this part. This is just, their theory. And again, starting from the Bible, which is God's word, we know that's not true because whales and dolphins existed before the pachycetids. And then next to the pachycetids, you can see this huge water jug structure. So a lot of people ask, how are the animals fed and watered easily on the Ark with only 8 people taking care of them? And you can use a lot of automated systems. So you can see that this here is an automated waterer, and we use systems very similar to this even in our zoos today. So as the water level goes down, the sensor is triggered to release more water. So Noah and his family only had to fill these up periodically, and it would just automatically refill as the animals drank it. And then up top, you can see on these ramps here that they can access. They can pour food straight in, and it goes right down into their feeders. So again, we use automated feeders like this all the time in the zoo world today. So it would make sense that Noah and his family could have used this to work smarter, not harder.
And Karina, I just want to remind people, all the boys and girls out there, when you come to the Ark, we just didn't sort of make these cages as what they would call props. They were made as real cages and set up so you could actually put the water in and the food in to show you how they would really function.
Right, yes, absolutely. So it definitely is plausible that 8 people could have taken care of 6,800 animals for a year. And remember, this is temporary emergency animal care. They're not running a zoo here. So obviously our zoological settings today are much more intricate and advanced. But again, their goal was survival. The world was getting destroyed. So they just needed to temporarily survive for a year. So you can see here really well with our Thylacosmilid kind, their little food bowl here, that automated feeder. So as they ate their food, it would release more. So Noah and his family could work smarter, not harder, which is always our motto in our zoo today too. So these guys look a lot similar, really similar to saber-toothed cats, but they are actually separate from saber-toothed cats. They believe these are actually marsupials. So these are little representatives of these guys. And then as we move over next to them, we have some Cymosuchus.
It's interesting, when a lot of people come to the Ark, sometimes they just quickly walk past these.
Yes.
But if you actually spend time, look at the signs, and look at the animals, you can learn a lot of interesting information.
Yes, we have a lot of extinct representatives. There are so many amazing species that unfortunately we have lost today due to either changes in the climate, habitat destruction, man's activities, overhunting, out competition from other species. But Noah would have likely had quite a variety of extinct life on his Ark, as they likely would not have gone extinct yet.
And our designers did such a great job, these actually look real.
They do. These guys worked really, really hard to recreate these models and make them as lifelike as possible. Next to Cymosuchus, we have one of my favorite extinct animals. These are Macrauchenia.
Sort of look like deer.
They do, but they are not deer. They're actually separate. You can see they've got that kind of long, floopy snout, very much like a tapir. So these guys have been found in South America, and they actually grew to be quite large. But as you can see here, we use young adult representatives. Again, they would have had a much longer reproductive life to repopulate their kinds after the flood. And then next to the Macrauchenia, we've got some Silosaurus. So these are not true dinosaurs, but these are little reptiles here. So these were not very big animals. The largest representative of this kind was only about 3 feet tall. But as you can see, we do try to represent even all the extinct life here on the Ark. And as we move down, this is one of my favorite extinct animals.
I think they're all your favorite.
I'm really sad that a lot of these animals have gone extinct. I hope I'll get to see them again one day. These here are entelodons, and they are quite pig-like, but they're not actually pigs. They're nicknamed Terminator pigs because they have some really gnarly teeth and some really insane facial crests, and they do get quite
pigs?
large. Yes. So again, we don't know. We did not live with these guys, so we have no idea what they were actually like. Scientists have presumed that they were carnivorous, and they were very feisty, active, threatening animals.
But we
again,
don't know.
we don't know that for sure. All we have are the bones, so we can only
Well,
guess.
before sin, they were all friendly.
Right, and before sin, everything would have been vegetarian, even these guys. Just because an animal has sharp teeth today doesn't necessarily mean that it's a plant eater, or a meat eater.
That's an intriguing animal, isn't it?
Yeah, there are plenty of animals alive today that have sharp teeth but eat only plants. So we have sloths at our zoo, and sloths have very, very, very huge, pointy, sharp teeth, but they only eat plants. You can think of fruit bats. Fruit bats have sharp teeth. They only eat fruit. Pandas only eat bamboo. They've got sharp teeth. So just because an animal has scary-looking teeth in the fossil record, or even today, doesn't necessarily mean that they ate meat. And like Ken said, in the beginning, when everything was perfect, everything would have been vegetarian. So this is a representative of the cattle kind.
Now, people are going to get confused by this one.
Yes.
You'll have to explain this. That doesn't look like a cow we have today.
So the bovine, the cattle kind, includes things like cattle or cattle-like animals like yaks and bison, but antelopes actually fall under this kind as well. So this actually looks a lot like a bongo that's alive today. It's a different species, but they look like little bongos. So antelopes actually also belong to the cattle family. So very diverse.
Deer are separate
No, deer are
altogether,
separate,
right? And moose
right.
are separate.
So-
Moose and deer are the same kind.
Yes. So antelope actually do belong to the same biblical kind as cattle.
So these gave rise to all sorts of intriguing species.
Yes. So, and again, you can see the automatic waterers we have in here. And then if we walk underneath and look up, you can see one of Noah's son's wives. I believe this is representative of Shem's wife. And you can see her pushing the wheelbarrow across the ramp above the animal enclosures. And that way she can easily access the feeders to refill the food, refill the water. So again, this would make for a very efficient care system. Again, 8 people working smarter, not harder, would very easily be able to take care of these animals. So you can see all the way down the ark we have these ramp systems and feeders going overhead, so it's very representative of what Noah's ark may have looked like. Now over here we have our little rhinos and rhinoceros. Oh, I love rhinoceros. This is one of my dream animals for our zoo. So rhinos today get very, very big, but as you can see, a young adult rhino is still pretty small. And even after a year, the rhinos are not going to be full size. So these guys would not have taken up too much space on the ark. Again, we want those young animals so they can reproduce after the flood and fill the earth with their kind. And then next to them, we have representatives of the giraffe kind.
Now, Karina, this is where people might get confused again. They think that, giraffes all have long necks. But there is a member of the giraffe kind alive today.
Yes.
That looks very much like that,
yes,
right?
Yes, that is the okapi. So I don't know if you guys know what an okapi is. A lot of people think they're related to horses because they do have zebra-like stripes on their rumps. But okapis are actually related to giraffes. They're in the same created kind as giraffes.
And the reason we know they're the same kind is because we can document they can be
so
connected
we look at,
genetically.
Yes, genetics,
and they can interbreed in some ways.
Yep. So again, even evolutionists know that okapis and giraffes are related to each other. So this here is an example of an extinct giraffe kind, which I believe is the Shannocytherium, yes. So these guys, again, related to giraffes, but again, as young adults, they would have fit no problem. And according to our models, our research, Noah actually only would have needed 22 extra large cages. All the other cages would be much smaller. So again, the goal here is temporary emergency animal care for a year, not long-term zoological care.
And the giraffe kind must have had built into the genetics the ability to have long necks.
Yep.
Because there's some special design associated with that.
Yes.
But they are all the same kind.
Yep. So just like the okapis today that are related to the giraffes and the same biblical kind, these guys also did not have quite as long necks. And then behind them we have pachycephalosaurs. Now these are dinosaurs, and these guys are known for their very thick domes on their heads, which they believe may have been used for headbutting each other in competition like rams do today, like the muskox do today. So they've got these really, really thick domed skulls. So again, these are dinosaurs, but they're actually still quite small. We believe that there were only about 60 to 80 dinosaur kinds that existed, and the average size of an adult dinosaur is only that of a bison. So there were many dinosaurs that were no bigger than sheep, actually. So not all dinosaurs were these hulking monstrosities. So no problem at all to fit them on
Noah's Ark. And there are even some as small as chickens.
Yes, there are. Yes.
Buddy Davis has a sculpture of one
Little
in the Dino Den at the Creation
Yeah.
Museum. Yeah.
So very tiny dinosaurs existed too. Now this is usually a surprising one to some people. This is our representative of the horse kind. And so you can see it's actually quite small. And now we do have huge horses today. Think of the Clydesdales and the Belgians and the Shires. But the original horse kind was likely much smaller. We have a lot of fossilized horse species that are quite small. And even evolutionists agree that horses started out very, very small. So we would have no problem, again, housing this horse kind here on the Ark. And then next to them, we have our hippos. And a lot of people will challenge again, how did you fit these huge animals on the Ark? But hippos also start out very small. And if you think today, we actually have a species called the pygmy hippo, which is no bigger than about this as an adult. So the original hippo kind was not necessarily the huge hulking monstrosity you see today in the Nile rivers of Africa. So that original hippo kind may have been much smaller, like the pygmy hippo today.
And we want boys and girls to understand that God put all the information in the horse kind, in its genes, in its DNA, and all the information in the hippo kind to enable all the different varieties we see. So you could start off with small horses, but depending on the genetic information, when they reproduce, that can produce horses that are bigger than them, just like there are people today that will have children that are very taller than the parents or much smaller than the parents, and so it goes on. It depends on the genetics.
And then people went on to selectively breed a lot of these animals. So for horses, they have become domesticated, and we as humans have selectively bred them for certain tasks. So if we want a really big horse, we breed the biggest animals together and they get bigger. If we want a small one, we breed the small ones together. So a lot of selective breeding went into the domesticated animals
Well, and to help
too.
them understand that, think about how big a wolf is.
Yes.
And then think about a Chihuahua.
Yes.
Right? And then think about a Saint Bernard. And a Great Dane. And a Poodle.
There's a huge variety within
And they're all dogs.
And most of the 400 dog breeds were created only in the last 500 years by people. So this insane speciation and like all the variety you can get it in a very, very short time period.
Because God put all that information there to start with. And unfortunately, with some of our domestic variety of dogs, we're breeding for mistakes, mutations, mistakes in the genes.
So some of those guys are pretty messed up these days. Okay, so we are here. We have some of the more famous dinosaurs. So you guys might have seen these, in movies like Jurassic Park. So this here is our Spinosaur kind, and these guys were known for either their big sails or their spines on their backs, their long claws. So again, these guys are usually portrayed as meat eaters. They very likely ate meat after the fall, but again, all animals before sin would have been vegetarian. And there are plenty of animals today that have those sharp teeth and eat only plants. And in fact, a lot of meat eaters today like to eat plants as well. I have a friend who takes care of alligators, and her favorite food is a watermelon and apples. Polar bears love eating pumpkins and cabbage in zoos. So even animals that eat meat today don't mind eating plants typically. And then over here we have a representative of our Tyrannosaur kind, probably the most famous dinosaur, the T-Rex. And these guys did get very big, but as you can see here, they have no problem fitting on the Ark as young adults. So plenty of space for the T-Rex.
Actually, we do have particular emphasis on dinosaurs at the Creation Museum.
Yes, we do.
And we have a big exhibit there, the Dino Den.
Yes.
But we do have some of the representatives here in 4 cages as a part of the Ark, but it's a small part of the whole exhibit area.
Yes. We've got two more animals here. This right here is the calicothere. A lot of people confuse these. They think they look like the giant ground sloths, but they're actually different. They're more similar to rhinos and horses. But these guys, again, monstrous animals as adults, but no problem fitting on the ark in this enclosure as young adults. And up here you can see Noah feeding them. He's refilling their feeder. So again, working smarter, not harder to take care of these animals. And then we've got one more I want to peek at down here. Well, here actually we've got a Placerius. This is another synapsid, which is one of those mammal-like reptiles, and you can see Ham's wife feeding them through the cage. So I definitely think as a zookeeper, Noah's family would have gotten attached to these animals. I mean, I'm very attached to my animals. I form relationships with them. So it makes sense that some of them would have favorite animals. They would work with them sometimes. I mean, they had a year to spend with these guys. So this is a really great scene kind of showing that Ham's wife may have bonded with these animals and is enjoying caring for them.
And I love the fact that our designers went to great detail and great lengths to be able to put some of the extinct animals in here so you can see them, so you can experience some of the animals we don't experience today.
I know. I'm so jealous of Noah and his family.
We can't have any of these in the zoo, right?
No,
because
we
they're
can't.
extinct.
They are.
But you can experience them on the ark. So we wanted you to understand that. And
All
then,
right. Lastly, this is a representative of the sauropods. So the sauropods are the long-necked dinosaurs. These were the largest animals to ever live on land, and yet they still fit on the ark. So again, we wouldn't have wanted these large, older adults because, again, God would have likely led young adults, juveniles, to Noah because they had to repopulate their entire kind after the devastation of the flood. And as you can see, these little guys fit in here no problem. And even after a year's worth of growth, they still would have very easily fit on this ship.
And so, Karina, we also have an exhibit here showing you, because when you come in to the ark on the first deck, we have a lot of the smaller cages.
Yes.
And we show them how they could have housed the smaller animals.
Yep. So, yes, most of the cages are going to be much smaller. Like I said, we would only really need 22 extra large cages to house the animals on the ark. We do have some examples of some smaller cages. This is our animal care exhibit, so it kind of talks about how the animals may have been cared for by Noah's family. And over here you can see little cages maybe for the mouse kind, the rats, and you can see a cross-section here. So you've got your automated feeder that you put the food down and it comes out, and then your little guy can run around in here. And then on the corner you've got your automated waterer. So we use stuff just like this today for our small animals like our hedgehogs and our rats at the zoo. So it's a very, very similar setup, pretty easy to take care of. And then you would have these pull-out removable manure trays. So we actually have these in our exhibits for our hedgehogs and our rats down at the zoo. We just pull out the tray at the bottom, dump it, wash it, put it right back. So very easy to clean.
And we have an exhibit over here showing you the large cages that we just went past, but showing you them here to scale, but how it could have looked inside the ark.
Yes, exactly. So you can see here's the automated water with the sensor that'll trigger water to release as the animal drinks it down. And then the ramps overhead for easy deposit for Noah and his family. You've got the food dump here, so they could just pour food in and go right into their feeder. We've got some more pictures over here that talk about the refillable feeders, water distribution, waste removal. You can see they pour it right down and the animals got its food. So
see, one of the things we want them to understand too is, okay, man can invent these sort of things today.
Yep.
Well, why couldn't Noah and his family have done that? And not only that, they might have even been more intelligent than us, because we might be affected by sin even more.
A lot of people like to think that we're a lot smarter than our ancestors, but if you think about it, people closer to the beginning of creation were less affected by the fall, the mutations, sin, so they were quite intelligent, and ancient man was quite intelligent. They don't get enough credit.
Okay, Karina, I'm going to stump you now. I'm sure you won't be able to answer this. I come from Australia, and the koala is an icon of Australia.
Yes.
And it's a particular type of gum leaf, eucalyptus leaf, special species. I mean, it's very, very restricted. How on earth could a koala survive on the ark?
So koalas can actually eat other plants. They just choose to eat mostly eucalyptus. But the original koala kind again, even today, they can eat other leaves. They're just very picky eaters. So they would have had no problem, that original koala kind, eating any other kind of vegetation.
So these are probably degenerated.
Yes. In the zoo world, koalas are kind of frowned upon because they're not the brightest animals. They basically choose to eat a toxic plant, but they can eat other plants. But critics will often throw out these other animals with very specialized diets. For instance, the vampire bats of today only eat blood. Anteaters, obviously, they eat ants. But again, we have to remember that the animals on the Ark were the original animal kinds, not the specific species. Now, vampire bats come from a bat kind of fruit and seed eaters. So even insect eaters. So the original kind that vampire bats come from would have no problem eating fruits, seeds, insects. Anteaters today actually can eat things other than insects. I have friends who work with anteaters. They love things like avocados and eggs. So anteaters can actually eat a lot of other things besides just insects.
I wonder if they ate insects originally, or if, insects, are they what we call, real life in the sense of
the nefesh
animal life,
yeah.
the nefesh life? Probably not. God's classification system is different to ours.
Yes.
But for anteaters, they think of them as eating ants, right? Particularly. But did they only eat fruit originally, or what? What do you think?
Unfortunately, we don't know. I work with a lot of insects, though, and so arachnids, creepy crawlies, and I think a lot of them, some do have individual personalities, so I know they're not higher life.
We're not going to get into this right now. The spider has an individual personality.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have spiders and scorpions. They definitely do have different personalities among them. Obviously, not to the same extent that mammals and birds are going to, but I have a lot of fun with them. And animals like octopus and squid that are invertebrates, they're actually extremely intelligent animals. So
Okay, she's an animal lover.
yeah, you
this.
can't ask
All
me
right.
that question. So, okay, one more kind of topics kind of want to cover before we end the video. A lot of people ask about how Noah and his family could have acquired things like ventilation and lighting and getting rid of waste. So we have these TV screens here that guests can touch. So Ken just touched the clean water one. So if you watch the diagram, it kind of shows how Noah and his family may have collected water. Those first 40 days and 40 nights, it was raining. Collect the water, and again, you can release that into the automatic water for the animals to drink. And waste removal as well, this kind of shows you that. You can remove it, again, using those manure trays and then dumping out of the Ark into this moon pool here. So guests can come see how Noah and his family may have operated certain things on the Ark. So this one is showing how they got rid of the liquid waste. And so you can see Noah and his family would have had piping systems. They could very easily have piped some of this or wheeled it into kind of a dump area, a moon pool that would be removed from the Ark.
And yes, we do have cleaners that continually sanitize this.
Yes.
And we have places for people to clean their hands and wash their hands.
Yeah, so these things might not be operational when we first open, but typically we do have the ability guests can touch these and trigger to watch the videos. So then we've got our solid waste removal. There we go. So you can see Noah's family has a wheelbarrow full of waste, just like we do today, and he kind of dumps it into this pipe, and it takes it to this manure dump, which is then wheeled up and out of the Ark. So again, we're not saying that this is for sure how Noah and his family could have done it. We're just saying that it is possible. It is very possible to be able to complete these tasks on a ship with these animals. Now over here we have a video showing ventilation. So the movement of the Ark, God did say the Ark had a window, could have allowed the air to disperse through here, cool it, ventilate it. Again, just the normal rocking motion of the ship would have allowed air to disperse.
And they actually got this idea from some of the ancient ships. So they found
Yes.
had these what are called moon pools.
Yep.
It's like a cylinder, has water in it. And you can imagine as the ship is moving up and down, the water
kind of
moves
pushes.
up and down, and it'll push the air around and circulate the air.
Yes, so this is actually based on ships that did exist back then, and they did use this system. So it makes a lot of sense that Noah could have used this. We've got one more screen to show you guys, and that is lighting. So how Noah could have lit the Ark. So again, the Ark did have a window, so you could have used the sun when the sun's out, but then you've also got the potential for lighting lamps, like you see here.
So if you see the artificial lighting here, if
We
you look
do
up
have
here, you see in the Ark itself, that's what we have. They look like oil lamps.
Yep. So we do
But
have
they're-
these all through the
But
Ark
they're
as our
obviously
lights.
connected to electricity,
Yeah.
but you can't see that.
We do use electricity today, but very easily could have used that. Again, we had the opening in the top of the Ark that could have let sunlight through during the day and lit everything. And then we also have this concept of the sunlight coming through a covering that Noah and his family could have opened. So we'll finish
So
that
as soon as that-
animation,
and
and
then
then we'll
I'll
do
do
this
this
one. So you can see Noah's sons, they can push open the top. And again, we're not saying that this is absolutely how Noah did it. The Bible doesn't tell us how Noah did these things. We are just showing you examples of how it could have been done to show you that it is plausible, that this was very much a historical event that Noah and his family could easily have done.
So there we are. You know, one of the purposes of the exhibits is to teach people how this could have happened, to show you it was feasible.
Yes.
It's not only feasible, it did happen.
It did happen, yes.
But to show you in real life, this is how they could have done it.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of people, when they come through here, actually say, wow, I never thought of that, or I never thought of this. You know what's interesting, Karina? I've met a lot of young people that come through the Ark, and then when I've talked to them and said, which exhibit did you like the most? I've actually had many of them say, the one about how they got rid of the waste products, because that's one of the questions they
Yes.
have. You know, how could they get rid of all the waste products?
Yes.
Well, we have the answers right here. So, well, thank you for
You're welcome.
hosting the tour,
Yes.
and we'll see you again at another one of our animal encounters. Now, these aren't dead animals; these are sculptured animals.
Right, it's not
but they're real
taxidermy.
animals. But it gives you a look at animals that once lived that you don't get to experience except if you come to the Ark Encounter.
Yes.
So, hope to see you here sometime.